Thank you for joining me again today, and it has been on my mind to do this piece for a while, so I'm glad I've finally gotten around to it. Ponzi schemes. If you don't know what a Ponzi scheme is, you might want to check the article on my website that's linked to this video. You'll find it in the comments below. Click on it and you'll learn more about the history of Ponzi schemes and how all of that got started. But in Nigeria, we know it by other names. We call it scam, we call it 419, and so on and so forth, so that at least you know the direction in which I'm going with this video. Today, I'll be sharing with us tips, 8 useful tips on how to avoid falling victim to these very clever people that set out to rip you off of your hard-earned money. And if you watch all the way to the end, I'm actually going to share a tip on how you can verify photographs. When people, these people work in very odd ways. They can go online, harvest somebody's picture, append their name to it, and you think that is the person you're communicating with, when in fact that individual depicted in that picture has no idea about the venture you're getting involved in. So if you watch all the way to the end of this video, I'm going to show you step by step how to identify and be certain of a photograph that has been used in such a thing, so that you can be certain if the person you're communicating with is actually the person whose picture you're looking at. So let's go straight to the point. Now, the first and most obvious way of spotting a Ponzi scheme or a scam is that usually 9 out of 10 times their trademark is they are just too good to be true. Too good to be true. They generally offer very high yield profits for very little investment or risk. You see, for anybody who has been involved in any kind of business venture that requires you putting in your money, your sweat, your effort, time, and all of these things, you can actually spend a year or more before you break even. Break even means before you start earning a profit. And sometimes it takes even longer than that, especially with long-term investments like schools and so on and so forth. It can take a while. In fact, if you're the kind of person who's easily discouraged, you might not want to go into things like establishing a school or setting up some kind of a cottage industry or having a filling station or things like that. These things take time for you to recoup the money you put into setting the business up and then start bringing in a return. But you see these Ponzi schemes, you find that some of them will tell you that, oh, we've stumbled upon this very profitable venture that we're involved in. And all we need you to do is give us a token amount of money. We will add it to this, that, and the other, and then it yields us 300% profit over a period of 1 week, and then we return your money back to you with about 50% profit. And they're usually able to keep these promises at first. But the fact remains that in the long run, Ponzi schemes are designed to inevitably fail because they're not built on anything that is tangible or concrete. So that is point number 1. Number 2, Ponzi schemes tend to yield overly consistent returns, especially in the early days. It is important, it is crucial for them that the returns be consistent, that they're able to keep their word with the first 2-3 sets of customers that come in, because they need those people to run around and help them do the marketing. Now, they are not likely to ask you to do the marketing for them. But most of us, like, you stumble upon a good thing, you don't want to hide it from your loved ones. Yeah? And I think the typical Nigerian is a good-hearted person, is a kind-hearted person. Many people are happy to try it first, see if it works for them. Try again, it works for them. And then at that point, they're telling all their friends, family members, and so on and so forth. You know how things sometimes go in Nigeria. Small businesses struggle a lot. Many of them have a tendency to collapse. You're working maybe for the government, you don't earn a living. You don't earn something that can actually take you home. The few entities that actually pay a living wage, you work yourself to the bone. You are exhausted, and the money doesn't even seem to measure up to the amount of effort you put in and so on. So the typical Nigerian is always on the lookout for the next best thing. What can they put money into that will yield something that they can use? People accuse victims of this kind of fraud of being greedy or lazy. I find that is not necessarily true. In many instances, there's a level of ignorance involved, and that is why people fall prey to these kinds of people. But anyway, that's point number 2. The profits are very, very, very consistent in the early days, and that's the reason why. Point number 3, most of these ventures or businesses or platforms, whatever you want to call them, they tend to be modeled in a fashion that is not very easy to explain or understand, leaving people confused. Now, I'm a bit wary about this particular one, because there are other ventures that are perfectly legal. For instance, cryptocurrency, NFTs and things like that. Even ordinary affiliate marketing. But there are people for whom these things are so new that you can spend hours explaining to them and they still won't get it. They don't comprehend because it's not what they're used to. So this one is a bit dicey, but it can be an aspect of fraudulent schemes, which is why when you bring other novel things like NFTs, cryptocurrencies, affiliate marketing, some of these things are still reasonably novel in these parts, people who have been scammed before immediately get very worried. But those are actually legal, valid businesses that you can get involved in. Now, the difference, what separates these ones from the spurious ones, is that usually you can find a lot of information online from reliable platforms that explain what these things are. It's left to you to look for somebody who can break it down for you in layman's terms so that you fully grasp it. When it comes to the scam or the Ponzi scheme, however, you are going to find very little content explaining what it's about online, and most of them tend to be novel or new ventures. Okay, so that's a key way of differentiating between the two, and that's point number 3. Point number 4, you will discover that if you are able to find out the brains behind the whole thing, and many Nigerians have suffered over time at the hands of Ponzi schemers, so sometimes people want to make the effort to at least have a face or two attached to this thing they're going into. Now, usually when you are able to get a name or a picture and so on and so forth, you'll find that efforts to locate this person's social media pages, those efforts tend to be in vain. They cannot give you their Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, or nowadays TikTok handle. And I dare say that in the last 10 years or more, anybody who is literate in Nigeria and has the capacity to manipulate a smartphone has a social media platform, including high-ranking government officials. But usually you find that these small, creepy little people that want to become an infestation in somebody's life, when you try to find out who this person actually is, when you try to verify their identity using social media, it is difficult. Okay, let's give them the benefit of the doubt. Not everybody wants to be on social media, although if you're running a business, why you would not want to be on social media is something that baffles me, because that's another source for getting more customers, so to speak. But let's assume that for whatever reason you are leery of social media. Oh yeah, provide us with your valid ID, any of the 4 that are commonly used in Nigeria. Either your international passport, your driver's license, your national ID card, or voter's card. You cannot, or you are not willing to provide any of those. Anytime you stumble upon somebody who is running any kind of venture and you are not able to ascertain their identity, run. Let it go. It will collapse in no time at all. So that's point number 4. Point number 5. These so-called businesses are usually not registered with any state regulatory agency or board. For instance, Stocks and Exchange Commission. They're usually not registered. Sometimes they're not even registered with the CAC, Corporate Affairs Commission of Nigeria. So that usually is another red flag. Point number 6. We've spoken about the inability to get the owners of these businesses to locate their social media presence online. Another thing you will find out is that this business they're doing in this day and age will not have a website. And if it does have a website, the content there is so sparse. There's such a paucity of information about what they claim to be doing that it's practically useless bothering yourself with going there. That's another thing you should worry about, especially if they do not have a physical office located anywhere. That's another thing to look out for. Most times they don't have a physical office either. So how are they able to bring in customers and things like that? Well, WhatsApp. They'll use a lot of WhatsApp, Telegram, and so on and so forth. Now, these particular companies, I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with how they operate. I'm just saying that individuals that have spurious tendencies have found a way of utilizing the services provided by these platforms in some very dark ways. So, anytime you find that you've been randomly included into a group that claims to be doing some business or the other, and nobody can explain anything to you satisfactorily, nobody can even, they can't pinpoint who it was that gave them your number and things like that, exit the group. Because many of them tend to be very convincing. And if you're not careful, you could get lured in, pulled into something that you're not prepared for. Point number 7. When you do communicate with these people, either verbally on phone or you chat with them via any of these platforms I've mentioned, you will find that there's this tendency to want to talk about the Almighty, whether God, whether Allah, go on and on about religious stuff and how they will be punished by this, that, and the other deity if they do you wrong, and so on and so forth. And this strategy is usually used by these people because they know that Nigerians tend to be, we're ordinarily spiritual people, deeply religious, and so on and so forth. So the minute you're getting involved or about to consider getting involved in a business, this is a business. It has nothing to do with spiritual stuff. And the person keeps throwing God in your face. Be careful. Your antenna should go up. Your antenna should go up. Be very, very careful. It's usually used to lull you into a false state of confidence, and trust in somebody that you don't actually know quite well. Point number 8. Most of these weird platforms, these get-rich-quick schemes, most of them are unable to point out credible individuals who are willing to vouch for them. So that's yet another red flag. Now, I said I was going to share 8 points with you, and I have. That said, I must bring in this caveat. It is critical for you to know that the highly sophisticated criminal, you can't pin them down with these points I just mentioned. These ones are for those small, struggling chaps who might not even be well read. Ponzi schemes come in a range from the extremely sophisticated to the, the small ones that will rip you off of 30 or 40,000 and start feeling hip. The tips I've given you here will help you with some Ponzi schemes. But the really sophisticated ones, run by proper criminals, that's where you need to be really, really frightened. And we're going to treat that in the next video, because these are people that are willing and able to put their real face to what they're doing. They have online presence. People have probably had dealings with them for a while. A name that quickly comes to my mind as I say all this is Marksman Ejioma, who scammed people in March this year, March 2022, of huge sums of money, and is currently nowhere to be found. He was putting his face, his identity, his everything about him was out there. He was even able to lure a few very credible influencers to help him push his services out there. Those influencers are in trouble at the moment. I won't mention them. Those are the kinds of criminals we will deal with in the next video. But I hope that you will find these particular tips useful. And as I had promised, for those who have waited till the end of this video, this is how you identify pictures using the Google platform. So you'll go to images.google.com. Now, notice this camera icon. You click on it. It's actually very easy to do. You click on it. Then, if it is a picture that you've obtained from the internet, you would want to paste the image URL here. You paste it here. And if that is not the case, maybe you want to look for an image that you've already downloaded into your system. You go to upload an image, click on choose file, and then, okay, let's use Marksman's picture here. Open it. Sorry, this took a bit of a while. It took a little while. But you can see what immediately came up. Possible related search, Marksman Chinedu Ijeoma. We have a number of websites. We have other pictures showing us this person, websites talking about him, and so on and so forth. It's actually very easy. That's how you identify photographs, even online on social media platforms. Somebody is chatting you up. You want to be certain that the person you're talking to is actually that person. Grab the person's photograph, do a Google Images search, just the way I showed you right now, and you'll be able to verify if that is the actual person you are chatting with. Thank you for your patience. I hope you got something out of this. And if you did, Continue to watch, like, share, comment, and of course, subscribe as we bring you yet more content related to your finances and small business.